Hello and welcome back to Artist Diaries. It's been a while. In fact, it has been over a year since I last did one of these episodes, but now seemed as good a time as any to start them again, so here we are. If you watch these videos when I originally started them in 2023, you'll know that usually for these I head out into nature and I appreciate all of the wildlife. I find something that I like to paint and then I head back and paint it. And so I am back to do it all again, although when I got up and started filming this video, the fog made it slightly more challenging than it needed to be trying to find that painting inspiration in the first place. Although it did stop me from getting those lovely panoramic views, it did make me appreciate the landscape a little bit more in another way, because the fog itself is pretty atmospheric, and even if you've seen certain places loads of times before, seeing it in the mist gives it a totally different feeling and everything felt a little bit more mysterious. And there's a tree in this video that I have seen before and don't think too much about it, but in the fog it just looked so foreboding in the background. Like, you're not distracted by anything behind it, it just seems to loom out of the fog, and with the teasels in front of it, it just gave it a totally different look, and I felt like I could appreciate it in a way that I haven't before. This is something that I really love about nature, because even if you visited a place before, you could go back the next day and it'll be totally different depending on the weather or the season or what you might see on the day. And I like that you never know what that surprise is going to be or what you're going to find on that day. But as lovely and mysterious as this mist was, I thought that for the painting inspiration, I probably have to focus on something a little bit closer that I could actually see properly. It is super foggy today, so I think whatever we find to paint is probably going to be close up, because otherwise I just ain't gonna see it. Another thing I really enjoyed about being out in the fog was the fact that it made me focus on these close-up things, simply because I just couldn't see anything else. Everything in the distance was just covered in this blanket of mist, so I couldn't get distracted by what was going on the horizon. I had to spend some time focusing on what I could actually see, which were these lovely berries and water droplets on branches and spider webs and all of the lovely close-up stuff that usually I would just walk right on by and wouldn't give a second glance to. I started looking out for some of the buds on the end of tree branches, which is something I like to do at this time of year because it's a nice reminder that spring is on its way. I know we're only in December, but as you will probably know if you've watched these videos before, spring is my favourite season, followed closely by summer, so by the time we get to this time of year, I'm definitely pining for the spring. And so I will often look for these signs of spring early on so that I can feel as if we're almost there. This is an ash tree, and you can tell that by the black buds on the end of these branches. Ash trees are not having a good time at the moment because of ash dieback in the UK. It's difficult to tell at this time of year, but when the leaves are out, you might see big sections of the tree that are bare. But this one seems to be doing okay, and it's a nice sign that spring is on its way. Another tree I like to look out for at this time of year is the goat willow. I like to look for the catkins starting to emerge on the branches. These will be a really good source of pollen for those early insects that are out in the first warm days of the year, such as your bumblebees and hibernating butterflies. They're very fluffy, and I like to see these coming out because, again, it's a nice reminder that spring is hopefully not too far away. And as lovely as they weren't quite what I was looking for my painting inspiration. That was a choice between this plant here and the lovely water droplets and the spider webs in between the buds, and what I actually ended up painting, which is what we're going to come on to next. This is gorse, and it can nearly always be relied upon to provide a source of colour in these otherwise very misty times. I really like gorse. I love the yellow splash of colour in the flowers, and this type of gorse usually flowers between December and around about June, I think. So it's a really good thing to look out for in the winter months when everything else is either died back or waiting for the spring to come back again. And with the water droplets on the end of the flowers, I thought it would make a really nice painting subject today. So with that in mind, I headed back home to start painting. I cut my oil painting paper down to 6 by 8 inches. I made myself a cup of tea to warm up after the very foggy and misty walk, and I got started with the painting. It has been a while since I did one of these videos, so I had to get back into the routine of things. And I started first of all by doing a very loose sketch with burnt sienna just to outline where I wanted everything to go. I then went over the painting again with a very loose blocking. I really just wanted to get an idea of what colour I wanted where without putting too much effort into this stage. And after that, I did everything else in one go and I just started painting. Over the last year, my painting style has become a little bit more detailed. The paintings that I've done as commissions or for myself, I've spent a little bit more time working in layers and adding extra bits of information in there so they're a little bit more realistic. So it was actually quite nice to come back and do something like this where I attempt to do these oil painting sketches in around 2 to 3 hours. And in doing that, it means that I have to loosen up a little bit. I wasn't sure if I would be able to do that after spending such a long time trying to be more realistic, but it was actually a really nice exercise and I enjoyed it, so I hope that you enjoy seeing this painting come together as well. There were a few things that I enjoyed about this whole experience, and it reminded me why I like doing this series so much in the first place. I did not intend to leave it an entire year before I came back to this. It was something that originally I was doing every week, but it got a little bit too much to be able to keep up to that. And last year I ended up getting another job, so painting was kind of put on hold for a little bit. But in doing this again, it made me realise just how much I did miss it. And not just the painting side, but also going out and trying to appreciate nature while looking for that painting inspiration. If you've watched this series before, you will have heard me say this, but in doing this, it really helps me to focus and concentrate on the wildlife that I love so much, rather than just rushing about my day and seeing it in passing and thinking, oh, that's nice. While I do these videos and I'm working on this series, it really makes me stop and look at things properly and just take the time to appreciate what's in front of me rather than just kind of giving it that quick glance. As part of this video, I tried to look for birds that I could maybe include so that you'd be able to see something different other than just fog and mist and a few plants. I wasn't that successful at recording actual sightings of birds in the mist, but I did manage to get some of them singing and I spent quite a bit of time trying to find them. I was looking at a tree for some singing goldfinches for a really long time, and it just made me think how nice it was to do that. Usually I would have heard them singing and I would have walked past and I probably wouldn't have thought about it, but because I was doing this video, I spent a little longer just standing there and listening, and in that time I saw the goldfinches, there were great tits and blue tits in there were a couple of chaffinches, and all of that would have gone completely unnoticed if I hadn't have been doing this series. There are goldfinches singing in this tree, but I can't find them on the camera. They're in that tangle of branches. It's usually not a bad time of year to look for birds because the fact that there aren't that many leaves on the trees usually means you can see them a little bit better, although that obviously doesn't apply if you are going for a walk in the middle of the fog. I also like this time of year for testing my identification of bird sounds because these are things that I kind of pick up and then lose very regularly. Like, unless I'm listening to it all the time, I can end up getting them mixed up. So I like to try and practice at this time of year before all of the spring migrating birds come back and make it almost impossible. So I thought that today, in the middle of the fog, would be a good time to try and test those skills out again. It is quite a good time to listen for wildlife though, because there's no chance I'm going to be able to see the birds far away, but if I try and hear them, then maybe we'll get an idea of what's around at the moment. Little robin over there. There are fieldfare calling in the background, very faintly. A very distant flock of fieldfare. I definitely wouldn't have known what they were if it wasn't for the sound, because it's way too foggy to see anything. It was definitely testing my ID skills, trying to figure out what the birds were in the middle of all the mist. I did manage to see a couple of them. It was my usual efforts in terms of filming with my phone, so you can see the backs of a few pigeons and a distant crow, but I'm going to show you a compilation of some of the birds that I saw on this expedition. We're getting a bit more bedraggled the further into this walk we get, and I keep missing birds. I keep seeing them flying off, and then it's a little bit too late for me to turn the camera to them, but we're gonna keep trying. There's a pigeon sitting on that tree over there. Wood pigeons are one of my favourite birds. We're gonna see if we can get a little bit closer before it flies off. There is a great tit in this tree, not that you can tell from this video. And there are a few blackbirds flying around. I am definitely a little rusty in trying to get some actual good footage for you to see as part of these videos, but it was a start and we can build on it. So all in all, I have enjoyed my return to Artist Diaries, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of these videos with you as the year progresses. I am especially excited about sharing some of my favourite bits of spring and summer, which I kind of skipped out last time. Obviously, there was a year between my last video and this one, so we have missed a whole range of seasons, but it's nice to pick back up where we left off. My last videos mostly concentrated on autumn, and we're starting now in winter, so it kind of flows if we just forget that there is a gap of a year in the middle. I started this series in 2023 by asking the question of what do you like about autumn? Because as I mentioned in that video, it was not my favourite season and I wanted some things to look forward to, and I wanted to change my mind and really appreciate the season instead of waiting for spring to arrive. And so for this video, I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to ask if anyone is watching this and if anyone has watched up to this point, what do you like about winter? Let me know some of your favourite highlights about winter in the comments below, and that can maybe inspire me and get me through towards the spring, where I can share all of the things that I really love about that season with you. I do have my own favourite things about winter, and I've mentioned some of them in this video. I like looking for those signs of spring, although I'm not sure if that should count as a favourite thing about winter, is looking for signs that it's about to finish. But it is something that I do like about this season. I enjoy looking for those buds on the trees and those very early signs of spring. I always feel like when spring does get here, it seems to go by really quickly. And I think part of that is the fact that it's my favourite season, and so it's never long enough, and then we're already moving into summer. But I also think it's because it's such a changeable season. Like, so much happens in such a short period of time, and things change really quickly from week to week. So if you find that you're busy for a full week and then you get out in nature again, so much has happened and it's really hard to make the most of all of it. So I really like trying to make the most of it before it starts, which is why I look for those really early signs, and I try and start my appreciation for the season way before it actually gets here so that I can really make the most of it. But looking for signs of spring isn't the only good thing about winter. There are other bits that I like about this season. I like it when it's quite chilly and you're going for a nice crisp walk and there's frost on the ground, or I think we get really nice skies at this time of year. Everything just looks very crisp and fresh. It's very difficult to describe, but maybe you know what I mean. I like the fact also that we get to see sunrise and sunset more often because we have shorter days, so there is a better chance that you'll be up to see the sunrise and sunset. So there are nice things about this season that don't just involve waiting for it to finish. But if you have anything that you really like about this season, or if it's your favourite, then please, as I mentioned before, let me know in the comments, and it will maybe provide me with some inspiration to help get me through the next few months until we are back to springtime. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I feel like it's been a little bit rambly, but it has been a year since I last did one of these, so this video was all about just getting back into the flow of things and getting used to doing Artist Diaries again. I don't think I'm going to be doing this on a weekly basis moving forwards. I think that's probably going to be a little bit too much to keep up with, but I do hope to do this more often and not leave it another year before I am back doing another one in this series. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.